Hey there, thanks for clicking on this video. We hope it challenges you, inspires you, and helps you to see God at work in your life. Let's get right to it.
Welcome to City Church, and whether you're here or online, we're so grateful. I just ask, hey, if you're watching at your house, just maybe you're in your car, on your back patio, in your living room, just make that area where you're at right now your sanctuary, and let's receive all that God can speak to you. I know that we're all here for a purpose and a reason, and I just know that God's going to speak to you today. We are in this series called From Here to There, and we all want to get there. You're like, where is there? Exactly. We all want to get there, though. We all have somewhere that's there. We all have a there, like, right? We want to get like there to like finding that special someone, Mr. Right, you know. So often though it's like Mr. Right now, but I was Mr. Right though. I mean you got the right one. We all want to get there. Financial freedom. We want to get there to our career. We want to, like, wherever there is, we just want to get there. There's always somewhere for us to get and somewhere for us to go. Now, we don't always really know where there is, but what we do know is there is not here. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Okay, here's what I mean. Like, I don't always know what I want out of life. I just know that I'm not there. I just know that I want more. I know that there's better. I know that there's a fuller life. I know there's different circumstances somewhere else other than where I'm at right now. Like, I want to get there. But what I want to talk about today, last week we talked about the journey and how sometimes we really miss what God wants to do in the moment because we're always looking for something next instead of living for really just what's right now, what's in front of you, the people, the opportunities, the circumstances, all of it right now. And today I want to talk about where you are. See, because before we can get anywhere, we've got to figure out where it is that we are right now. In order to get directions to somewhere else, you got to know where you are. Now, if you know anything about me, I have admitted this many, many times, and I feel like there's a lot of freedom and self-awareness, right? Like, I know what I'm not good at, and it's okay to admit it. I am directionally challenged in a massive way. I can get turned around and lost in a place that I've been 20 times. And somebody will just tell me, like, well, just come back to my house. You've been there before. And I'm like, just give me your address. You ever done that before? Like, you've been here before. Can you send me your address? Like, I don't remember where you live. I was listening to a podcast. I was thinking about something else. I don't remember. I followed the maps mindlessly. I don't know where you live. I'm so directionally challenged that if you tell me directions like, well, go east 5 miles and then turn due south 0.3 miles and you've reached your destination, I have no clue what you're talking about. Like, I don't compute those kind of things. I know some of you in here, you're like, oh yeah, like right now you know where north is. Who knows where north is right now? Like, you just know it. Like, where's it at? Where's north? That way? I would have had no clue. I would have pulled up the compass on my phone. Like, I don't know that. I'm directionally challenged. But if you tell me to go past the Dairy Queen, if you see Walmart, you've gone too far, I know where to go. We were at a amusement park type place, and we come kind of to the point where we were hungry and getting ready for some food, the healthy food that you find in amusement parks, you know. And we didn't see any places to eat from where we were at, so we found one of those iconic big maps. Anybody know what I'm talking about, right? The big map at the amusement park. And you can see everything on the map from where you are right there. And there was a couple of problems with this map, though, for a directionally challenged person. The map was not oriented correctly. It was actually upside down from where we really were. So things on this side were on that side when I'm looking at the map, and I'm already very confused. And so I also looking for that one little arrow, that little spot that's crucial on these big maps. You know what that spot is? It says this: you are here. You know what this map didn't have? It didn't have a spot that said you are here. I had no clue where I was. And it took me literally a few minutes of like, okay, so this is there and this is here. And then I'm like going like this and trying to and finally figured out where to go. Because there was no little you are here thing on the sign. I'm going to write them a well-worded letter. Like seriously though, in order for us to understand where to go in relation to where we're at, we got to know where you are, right? You got to know where you're at. Now, I don't have the time or the mental capacity or the knowledge or intelligence to kind of break down where everybody in the room is at and where you're at in your life specifically. But what I want to talk about is one area that I think that we all frequent very often. And like that we're especially in this season, we're all probably at this place or we're going to be in this place. And if we can recognize when we're here, we can know where to go. If we can recognize that when I'm in this spot, I can then decide where I go next. And here's the spot that we've all been. We're all going to be, and honestly, in this season, we're probably all right here. It's the crucial crossroads. It's an intersection of faith and fear. And I think we're there, a lot of us. And if you're not there right now, you're going to be there. It's this intersection that you're going to come to, that you're going to go one way or the other. Like there's no third option. They don't go the same path. And you're going to come to this place where there's going to be faith over here. We're going to step into what we believe God says and has for our life, and there's fear over here, and we're going to step into that. And it's going to determine a lot for our lives. And there's a lot of us, I think that if we're looking at the big map of life, right, and we're saying, I want to get there, I want to be here, I want to be out of this, there's a big sign of you are here, and it's a crossroads, and it's going to determine where we get next. Or how about those little puzzles you get on kids' menus at the restaurants? I still do my kids' games on their menus, like any other parent would admit. You get the crayon, and I love the one where you got to trace the little maze line, and you want to get somewhere that doesn't dead end, right? You get to these points and you got to decide which way that you go. And that's how we are so often in life on our journey from here to there. We're at this place of faith and fear, and we got to figure out what we're going to do with it, right? What are we going to do with that moment? And one of the moments and one of the times that this becomes the most prevalent, the most obvious where we're at, that you can know, it's in this place of unmet expectations. Anybody ever been in that place before? The place of unmet expectations? Here's what I mean. You had an idea. You had a thought of the way that things were supposed to go, and then all of a sudden, something happened. I don't know what your something was, but something happened that didn't go the way that you thought or you planned that it would. You look on the calendar and you've got life goals for 2020. You look back in your journal, on November the 21st of 2019, you're writing down your, and then 2020 happened. Everything seemed to change, right? It's in that place of unmet expectations, maybe with relationships. It's in moments when crisis happens, whenever disappointment occurs in life, whenever we're discouraged, times whenever you doubt everything that you've ever known or you've ever thought. It's in those places that this intersection becomes more clear. Why? Because it's in those moments that fear screams so loud at us. Like fear is screaming at the top of its voice whenever life doesn't go the way that you planned that it would. You had a relationship you thought was going to work. You had financial plans. You went to college and you were going to get that dream. Like all these, and they just didn't work out. And so now all of a sudden fear is screaming things to you like, well, you can't do that. You can't do it anyway. There's no way forward. Why even try? Who are you? You're not good enough. What are you going to do now? I don't know why you even try. Has anybody heard any of those words ever in your mind? Like, I live with those every moment from there to there. When I'm walking up on this platform every single week, we all hear that scream of that voice. We do. It's fear. And so in those moments, whenever life, you know the saying, hands you lemons, right? You're not just in a struggle. You're at an intersection. It's not just a struggle in life where you just got to struggle through. Just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and just keep on. You're at a crossroads. You're at an intersection where you have to know which way you're going to go between faith and fear. And so we see this with the Israelites all the way back in Numbers chapter 13. And we know the story, right? We've talked about it quite a few times. Whether you've ever been to church or not, you probably know the story. Have heard of the Israelites. They were in slavery and in captivity in Egypt for about 400 years. And by these mighty acts of miracles, they're released from captivity. And then now they're free, and God has promised them, I'm bringing you to an awesome place. Like, you got this land that you're going to go to, and it is good. I'm telling you, you're going to love it. Like, that God's promised it for generations and generations. And so now they'd left Egypt, and they've been traveling for about a year in the desert of Sinai and in the desert of Paran, which is in this area between Egypt and Israel on the map. And so we see that they're traveling this area, and they've met with God on a mountain, and they've seen God move in mighty miracles. And then so God has led them all the way up to this point where they're standing at the precipice, at the very edge of this land that they had promised. And so they send in some people to go check out the land. They're like, we want to see what this land is at. So they chose 12 people to go into the land. And Numbers 13, 25 through 27 says this: after exploring the land for 40 days, the men returned to Moses, Aaron, and the whole community of Israel at Kadesh in the wilderness of Paran. They reported to the whole community what they had seen and showed them the fruit they had taken from the land. And this was their report to Moses: we entered the land that you sent us to explore, and it is a bountiful country. Like, it is good. Like, this place is off the charts. It's amazing. Like, we didn't have to apply any filters on our Instagram posts. It was that good. It was like hashtag no filter for real, okay? It said a land flowing with milk and honey. Another way of saying it's incredible. Like, the land just produces this awesome stuff, like fruit the size of your head. Like, it is incredible. Said, here's the kind of fruit that it produces. And so I imagine them just holding up, like an orange the size of like a Freightliner or something. I know it's not that big, but I exaggerate in my mind. Like, it's so good. It's so good. Such an incredible place. Like, Moses, Aaron, everybody, y'all ain't gonna believe it. It's so good. And then Numbers 13, 28, right? And there's a big but here. Why don't you love it when there's a big but in the sentence? Don't read into that. It says, but the people living there. Okay, so all of a sudden now, like, it's so good, God, you're so good. And then all of a sudden there's this crossroads that's created. There's this intersection that they wind up being at. It says, but the people living there are powerful. Their towns are large and fortified. We even saw giants there, the descendants of Anak. So what he's saying is, like, it's awesome, but these people are huge. Like, they know jujitsu. Like, they're strong, they're fortified, they're warriors. Like, we don't know anything. Like, we've been in slavery for our whole lives. There's no way that we can do that. Yeah, it looks good, but God, what a tease, right? You brought us here to show us, like, it's awesome, and we can't do it. They're at an intersection. at a place where something unexpected happened, where they didn't see this coming. They thought they were just going to come into this land and it was just going to be awesome and perfect, and they were just going to be able to walk in and it was going to be theirs. They didn't expect that they were going to go in and there was going to be problems in front of them. They didn't expect that they were going to go in and in the place, even in the path that God had promised them, that there's going to be problems along the way. It's true for your life. Listen, you give your life to God, and God has promised you things for your life. That doesn't mean that there's not going to be any problems along the way. And whenever they had this moment of unmet expectations, when they showed up and there were giants in the place, they're like, yo, hold up. Like, we can't do that. And so we do the same thing. We show up. There's a lot of intersections that we show up when things didn't work out the way that we thought. We're like, man, I didn't know that marriage was going to be so hard. So there's an intersection. The job just didn't work out like the way that I thought. The diagnosis came back different than I hoped for. Like you plug in whatever the moment is there for you that just didn't work out the way that you thought it would, and we're at a crucial intersection just like they were. It's like, God, I believe all this, but this happened, and it leads us into a crucial intersection. I think the problem is most of us don't realize that we are at an intersection. Most of us in life, we've been traveling the road of fear for so long that we don't realize that there's a better way, that there's another way, that there's a better way than just giving into the fear that we feel, whatever we feel at the moment, the big problem that's in front of us and what we see. Like we've allowed our circumstances to dictate us so long that we don't realize that there's actually a better way. We're at an intersection. We all have that stop sign, don't we? I don't know where it's at for you. I can tell you the road it is for me, but it's the stop sign that we know there's a stop sign. Sure, there's an intersection, but I never stop at that stop sign. I may slow down a little bit. Anybody, you got that road, you need to look and make sure there ain't no cop there, but you just keep on going. East Texas rolling stop. You know what I'm talking about? And that's what we, I think, have been doing through this intersection of faith and fear for so long, choosing to just give in to our fears, choosing to just allow what's in front of us to dictate us. The worst thing in our lives becomes the only thing that matters, and it has dictated us for so long that now we don't even know where we're going. We're just kind of trying to survive, but we got to realize where we are. Stop and recognize there's an intersection there. You are here between faith and fear. Now, once you know where you are, once you realize that, like, I'm feeling that pull over here, I'm feeling this fear and these thoughts, these things are in front of me, this problem, once we know where we are, it's time to decide where we're going to go. There's a choice that we've got to make in that moment. And the Israelites had to make it as well. And in verses 30 and 31, there's this other guy, right? His name's Caleb. He went in with him. He was one of the 12 people. He saw all the same things, and he said this, but Caleb tried to quiet the people because they freaking out right now. They're like, we came all the way here, and now we're just going to die by giants. And so they're crying and they're upset. And he says, I tried to quiet the people as they stood before Moses. He said, let's go and take the land. Let's go at once and take the land, he said. We can certainly conquer it. But the other men, right, here's the intersection. He's like, let's go this way, right? And the other men who explored the land with him disagreed. We can't go up against them. They're stronger than we are. Like, there's no way, Caleb. You've lost your mind. So in this moment, when you realize where you are, there's a choice that we've got to make. Which one are we going to walk in? Where are we going to go? Because both don't lead to the same destination, and we can't travel both of them. There's a choice. See, faith defined in the Bible itself actually means it's things that we hope for, but we can't see them. And we're hoping, but we can't see it. Fear, on the other hand, is response based off of what we do see. Do you see the battle? So fear says, I see this, it's a big giant, like there's nothing I can do, so I shut down, I back off, and I just kind of give up. Faith is, there's something that I hope for that God has said, but I can't see it. And that's tough. I don't see it. Why was Caleb so confident? He's like, let's go. You know, I imagine like a little Braveheart scene there, Caleb with his face paint on. And he's like, let's go take the land. Why was he so confident they could take the land if they were outmanned, outmatched? These were giants in there. For the mere fact that God said that the land is yours. Like, he didn't doubt it because God already said, wait, hold up. I don't care what they look like. God said that it's ours, so it's going to be ours. Whether they just run away, whether we fight them, I don't know what that's going to look like, but God said that it's ours, so that's where I'm going to go. That's what I believe is true. Fear makes you say stuff like, is any of this faith stuff even real? Right? I see what's in front of me. I know what I've thought, what I've been taught, but is any of that even real? Because I can see this. And it's staring right in front of me, and it's big, and it's ugly, and it's tough. Fear tells you can't whenever God consistently says that you can. Fear says that there is no hope, where God says, I am your hope. Do you see how different these two phrases are? Fear says your only hope is just to survive and make it through, where God says, no, you can truly live your greatest life, even in the face of your biggest disappointments. So here's the fact. If they're so different, one of them is a liar. One of these is lying to you. God is a liar, or fear is. And we have to decide which one that we're going to believe is telling the truth. See, the decision that we make at this intersection, when we're confronted with all the fears and all the problems and all the things and just life in general pulling us this way, and we got God over here saying this, the decision is this: will we walk in what God says, or will I walk in what I see? Because, man, I don't know about you, but the more that you live, you're going to realize the truth of this, that sometimes what God says, and a lot of times, is very different than what you see. When God says that, listen, your family belongs to the Lord, just continue to pray, continue to believe, and you look up and everything's in disarray, it's really difficult to keep going. When God says, I am your protector and your provider, and you just lost your job, it's really difficult to say, okay, God, hoorah, let's keep going. It's really easy to say, I quit, I give up. When what we see, it doesn't line up with what God says, one of them is lying. And the decision that we have to make is which one will we walk in? Because it's not always going to be what we feel. It's going to have to walk towards what we know is true. God didn't tell them, it might be yours. Like, you walk up there and I don't know. Give it a try. Like, walk in. You might die, you might not, but imagine if you win. That's going to be cool. It's going to be a good... No. He said, there's a land that I've promised you. And when you get there, it might look a little bit different, but it's yours. And so in your life, there are promises that God has made to you as his children, as his followers. And it may look a little bit different sometimes, but he said, that didn't negate the fact that I've promised you. Faith requires trusting that what he says is true, because often it brings you in a different direction than what fear tells you in your life. What's in front of you, the problem in front of you. God said, I have hope for you. I got a plan. I know it's best. I won't fail you. I love you. Whenever fear will tell you things like, listen, just take care of yourself. Don't care about anybody else. Just retreat back into you. You're numero uno, and you're all that matters, right? Where faith tells you continue to love people, continue to love God no matter what happens, what life looks like. Those are stark differences. Fear will tell you just numb the pain. There's pain coming, just numb it. Just drink a little bit more. Just watch Netflix a little bit more. Like just whatever your outlet is, all of our outlets look different. You may not have this proclivity that somebody else has, but you've got an outlet. We have it. Just talk about somebody a little bit more. Just do that. Like numb the pain somehow to make yourself feel better. Where faith says, bring me the pain. Like I'm not too small to handle your pain. Trust me with that. Fear is telling us, well, if God really loved you, then that really wouldn't happen, would it? Like, oh, God. Or God said that there's no height, no depth. There's nothing that can separate us from the love of God. Nothing someone else can do, and surely nothing you can do that separates you from the love of the Almighty God. Now, the question is, will our faith go beyond a Sunday morning clap to a Monday morning application to put this into action? Because life's never going to change if we just hoorah on a Sunday morning. I'm telling you, everything's going perfect when we're in here. It's when we get out there and it stinks, all right? And we say, God, I'm going to believe your promise bigger than my problem. And I'm not going to lie to you, that's not easy. Actually, giving into fear is what's easy. But this path over here is what's best. Will you believe the promise that God has for you? Or will you believe the problem and what it's telling you that's in front of you? Crucial decision to be made. Fear always tells you, what if? And your life is directed by and guided by, what if? What if it doesn't work out? What if they don't like you? What if this? What if this? What if you take that step and then the floor falls in and we all die because we're on the 3rd floor? What if? What if? What if? What if? What if? And there's so many what ifs. Faith says even if. Like even if all of that what if happens, God is still my God. God is still my provider. God is still my protector. He's still the one that I lean on. And here's what's going to happen. Faith or fear, one's going to win. And so often, what we try to do is we try to do this number. We walk in both, right? Until we get to a certain place where we just can't do the splits anymore. And this is my limit right here. Not impressive, but the pants are kind of tight. Let's be honest, they ate kind of bad over the last couple of weeks, and these things were a struggle to get on this morning. And so we try to do that number, and we're like, I'm going to walk, I'm going to trust in God, but then what if he doesn't show up? I'm going to go and do this, but then I'm going to compromise over here. And so we get to a point where what happens is we're just stuck in life, and we're miserable. I gave that more syllables for a purpose to make it sink in. We're just miserable in this moment because we're trying to do both, but we can't walk in both. We've got to make a decision. Which one are we going to trust? And I know we don't want to put it in these kind of terms, right? Because it's like, it's harsh and it's, but God is a liar or fear is a liar. What the world around me is telling me that I'm supposed to do, if it goes contrary to God, that's a lie. There's one of them is lying. And so often, I think that we get the idea that God isn't faithful just because in those moments in that intersection where it's decision time, God's silent. Anybody ever approached that moment before? You're like, God, it'd be nice if you just, I don't know, a lightning bolt or, anything right now. A whisper is good enough. A letter from heaven. But you know what I notice about situations like this? That in the middle of the test, the teacher is always quiet. You don't have the teacher standing up lecturing in the middle of a test. And it's this intersection between faith and fear where there's a time of decision, or to test for our lives, you say, will you actually trust me? Or will you just trust that problem? Trust what fear is telling you, that you're not good enough, that you can't. fear of failure, fear of success. This fear on all ends just to keep you from moving forward. And fear is going to force you to ask yourself if we really know who God is. Like, do we really know him as the God who was so big that he carved out the oceans and the land, and he spoke everything into existence, that cool little thing in the sky that makes everything bright? He just said, and it's there. Like, do we believe that this God is that one that Isaiah actually described him as this incredibly huge nature? It says the heavens are his throne and the earth is his footstool. Like, this is a big God, right? Do we see God as that big? Do we see God as a God who loved us so much that literally, not figuratively, literally in our sin and our separation from God, that we were destined to hell, that he sent his only son out of heaven to be born and to die a brutal death for us because of his love? Do we see God like for that? Do we see God so powerful that even death itself was not powerful enough for him, because on the third day, Jesus rose back from the dead? If that is the same kind of God, there's no problem in front of you, because it's not as big as death, and he's bigger than death. If we believe that that's the God that we serve, then this over here is not as big. And it forces us to ask ourselves, do we really believe that he is who he is? Do we really know him for who he is? Or is it just some kind of felt board idea of God, and that's where he stayed? He's great for the good times when everything's going right, but for the bad times, who is this God? Have we watered and dumbed him down to the point that we can take God and fit him into our pockets? I don't need a God who fits in my pocket, because if he fits in my pocket, he can't do anything for me. I need a God who's bigger than I understand. At this intersection, do we have the kind of faith that holds up? Or is it just too weak in front of the problems? And 10 out of the 12 people who went into this land, 10 of the 12 failed the test. They didn't know that God was bigger than the thing in front of them. And at this intersection of decision, where we're at the corner of fear and faith, right? It's a defining moment for the rest of your life. It's a defining moment for what's going to happen where there is going to be. The Israelites' decision was to give in to their fear. They did not go to the land that God had promised them. The only other option was to turn around, which is a desert. There's this awesome land that God said you could have, or turn around because of fear and go back into a harsh, horrid desert. That's what they chose to do. And then for 39 more years, a total of 40 years, they wandered in the desert. And here's what God told them. Numbers 13:22. He said he was talking to Moses about the ones who wouldn't trust that he's a big enough God. They wouldn't trust that he was telling the truth versus what they saw. And he said, they will never even see the land that I swore to their ancestors. They're not going to get there. They're not going to get there. Where I had for them to go, they're not going to get there. He said, none of those who have treated me with contempt will ever see it. Because they just didn't trust him. And for the rest of their lives, and the entire generation of people, the Bible says, actually died in the desert. And only after they died and a new generation rose up that would trust God did they then go into the land of promise. Where we decide to step determines the there that we end up at. And so it's a crucial decision-making moment for us, especially in this season right now, when there's so much fear. It's prevalent everywhere. But even when we get past this and life looks different and look a little bit more normal, fear is always going to be there. Over and over and over again, the Bible says, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. Isaiah 43:5 says, do not be afraid, for I am with you. It says, do not be afraid. Why? Because there's always going to be opportunity to be afraid. Like it's always gonna be there. And listen, you're never gonna get to some point where you never feel fear again. Like, what do you mean, God, just don't be afraid? If only, right? As if. Like, anybody remember that? No? 90s people? Okay. As if. Like, if only it were that easy, just that simple. Just don't feel anxious. Don't feel anxiety. Like, you want to slap somebody in the face sometimes whenever you're just overwhelmed with anxiety and they're like, well, just don't. I'm like, what? If it was only that easy. But God says, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. You're never going to stop feeling fear. You're never going to stop the what ifs from creeping in and trying to take over, but we do have the power to choose the one that we walk in. You've got the power, only you got the power to decide which one is going to be the direction of your life. Because right now, listen, you're at an intersection. There's a big map, right? You're at the amusement park of life. And right now in life, it feels like that clicking of the Texas Giant. Click, 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 click. You can't see over the top. It looks like we might die. I don't even know. But we're looking at that map, and it says you are here. And there's an intersection, faith and fear. And we've got to decide which one are we going to go to. And it's a defining moment. We're going to be here in this place a lot. There's faith and there's fear. There's faith and there's fear. Will I actually step into the place that God has for me? Or will I again, once more, just settle for what I'm feeling at the moment? You're not good enough. You can't do more. You know what? No one loves you. Why even try? And we feel that creep in all the time. So where will you go from here? Would everybody stand up with me? And if you're watching at home right now, would you do me a favor and just take the next few moments to allow God to speak to your heart? Settle everything else down and allow God to have a moment to speak. So where will you go, right? Okay, we've got that choice to make. Remain faithful, trust in God, put into actual practical application the things that God says. Like, I don't know what's going on in my finances, but God, I'm going to continue to give even when it doesn't make sense. God, right now, I just don't know even where life is going, but I'm going to continue to love people. God, I'm going to continue to seek after you. Or will I just give in to whatever I feel at the moment? So what are the areas that you've stopped trusting God in? What are the areas that you've stalled in life? Like, what's the area you can say right now, maybe pull out of your mind and say, yeah, it's that area I really haven't fully trusted God. Yeah, it's that area where if I'm being really, really, really honest with myself, I just don't know if God can do that. Like, I want to trust him, but what if? And today my challenge to you is, would you just take that off the shelf and say, God, I'm gonna give this to you, because even if everything else falls apart, God, you're my provider, you're my protector, you've made promises for me, and God, if you said it's mine, then it's mine. I don't care if there's a giant in my way, how big it is, because God, you are bigger. Calling just a moment of reflection. You in your own life, your own walk, your own decision to be made. You're at a crossroads, you're at an intersection. And you gotta ask yourself, well, I just trust God. Or is God a liar? God, today I just seek you and I trust you. God, I just ask that no matter where we're at in this place, we all find ourselves at this intersection. Now more than ever, and God, I just pray that you would give us the spiritual insight, the faith to know that you are bigger than our greatest fear. God, so we can walk out of this place with resilience, with determination, with boldness to walk toward what you've called us to do and who you've called us to be, even if it doesn't make sense. Like we can say, like Caleb, let's go forward. Let's trust God. In just a few moments of you making your own decision, we're gonna sing a song together, but I want you to be in self-reflection. Where are the moments that, quite honestly, I've just said, maybe not in these words, I've just said, I don't trust God enough to give him that. And would you take that and just say, God, you can have it. You can have my broken heart. You can have my broken dreams. You can have my discouragement, my disappointment, my pain. You can have all the unforgiveness that I've kept in my heart. You can have all those moments where I think that I've got to have all the answers. God, just lay it at your feet.
Thanks for joining us online today. We want to invite you to stay connected with us throughout the week on Facebook and Instagram at City Church Lufkin. If you're looking for a church home in the Lufkin area, we'd love for you to join us on Sundays at 10 a.m. Things look a little different right now, but one thing remains the same. No matter who you are, where you come from, or what your life looks like, we love you and you can find a home and family right here at City Church. If you've been blessed by this ministry, we'd love to give you an opportunity to help us continue to reach others. By giving your tithe and offerings, you're making a way for others to experience the love and the hope of Jesus. There's a link in the description where you can go online and make a donation. And if you gave your life to Jesus, we'd love to know. Just text the word Jesus to 936-229-4557. We hope this message encourages you and helps you to navigate life's twists and turns as we explore the best way to go from here to there. We'll see you next week.